Okay, I have Bryan's knife ready for marking. I just want to show you my little process. For one, that is my machine that I use, and it's just an AC/DC power supply. And on the right, that is the DC leads. On the left is the AC. Now, from reading about this on forums and talking to other people, they do suggest that the red lead, which I have used for my marking lead, go to the black terminal on the DC, and then the clip, which is the ground, go to the red lead. Seems to work for me. And what I do is I'll turn this power supply up to about 20 DC volts, and then the key, there's my marking lead. You see the red lead going into the black terminal, and then the grounding clip going into the red. I didn't know if that showed in the shot. But the marking electrode itself is just one I made from a large electric motor brush. It's graphite. And then this is just a felt pad. And I just held in place with an O-ring, just in a groove that I cut. And what I do is I change this felt with every mark. As soon as I'm done, the electrolyte is caustic. It's corrosive, and it will corrode this if you just leave this on here. So as soon as I'm done, I take it off, and when I flip this knife over and do the MacDonough logo on the other side, I'm going to use a new piece of felt. Felt is cheap, but it does get dirty, and I want good results each time. So for the price of a piece of felt, what the heck? So I'm going to turn this on and run this up to about 20 DC volts. And the key with these stencils, this process generates heat. You don't want to melt your stencil. You don't want to fry it. If you treat these right, they will last for several hundred markings per stencil. But if you fry them, of course, you're done. Then you have to get more of them or make more of them. The key is you want this stencil to lie flat on the steel. You've cleaned the steel underneath, and then with the marking solution, you just put enough on there just to wet it. And this stuff tends to run off to the felt, but you don't want it dripping wet, so you want to blot some of that out of there. You just want enough to conduct electricity through the stencil. That's all it is. So it's just down, and about 3 seconds a piece. I don't know if you'll hear the hum. Up. Just letting things cool off. If you notice, I taped over the guard. Anywhere this wet stuff touches is going to leave a mark. So I've insulated everything just to protect this thing from me. Sometimes a gentle swipe. Now, some guys will swap their leads at this point, and that is supposedly good to clean your stencil. Now we move over to the AC side, and we do a few shots with that. And I just like to move to a clean spot on my marking pad. Just a little bit. Blot. And then go with the AC. And this is what puts the black finish down to the lettering. But you want to anchor this real well with tape, it's in one point especially, so this stencil doesn't move. You'll get a blurred image. Alright, you can pick it up, take a look, and that is going to be good. Let me move the stencil out of the way. Now, I'm going to pop the lead off here, and we need to get this neutralized. That electrolyte. Any good glass cleaner will work. But just don't give it a cursory wipe. You really need to clean this off really well, especially if you are using anything like an O1 or anything that will rust. This is stainless, and you have to get an electrolyte that is designed for stainless steel, and the stuff I use from TUS Technologies does both. Some guys make their own. Salt water, I've heard of water and vinegar mixes. There's all kinds of recipes for just about anything you want to do. But there is the first logo, and I hope that's showing up. It's cut nice and deeply, and it's marked. And we're going to go with 2000 and give this one more final buff. And this is cut about 5/1000ths of an inch into the steel, so you don't have to worry about rubbing it out. Now, if you just use the AC marking method, then that's going to put a black oxide on there, and that is able to be buffed away. Just depends on how permanent you want your logo. But yeah, that one turned out nice. Now we're going to get set up to do the USS MacDonough one on this side of the knife. Okay, so from time to time, you're going to need to clean off the head of your marker, whatever it may be. These graphite motor brushes do real well, and they're cheap. But I do want to clean this off because it'll get a buildup of corrosion or oxide or whatever that stuff is. But you want something that's going to conduct electricity really well. So about like that. I'll wipe off the dirt, and then a clean piece of felt. Now I do more than one knife at a time. I'll just run this from knife to knife in one series, unless it gets too... If you stop hearing that that hum, that sizzling sound, means you're not conducting electricity, and it's time to change this. Can also mean that you've clogged your stencil, which is a good reason why you reverse polarity on your DC, just to, as I said, it can help clean the stencil up. So, alright, got the stencil on this side of the knife for the USS MacDonough logo. I'm going to connect my ground clip up just anywhere on the knife. Some guys lay their knives on a copper or brass plate with the lead attached to it. Okay, so again, just wet your pad, work it in, make sure it saturates, and then clean off the excess. You don't want it to drip, and you don't want it so you don't want so much on there that you're going to force this stuff under the stencil to areas you don't want to etch. You can actually feel it hum a little bit. I blow on it now and again to cool it. And I'm just swiping my pad across there just to make sure I get all them little figures on there. If you start hearing the humming diminish, might mean you're drying it out a little bit. So just a little more wetting solution. Blot it. Go back. See what the difference that makes? And then simply switch your leads. I thought about making a switch that would just do all this at the flip of a switch, but it doesn't take that long. Now we're blackening. I can feel the heat in my hand, so it's okay at this point to kind of lift up, see what you've got, and we have a good etch. We're done. Leave a corner loose so you can lift it up, and then you can put it back down if need be and not lose your reference. So we are finished marking the knife. Again, neutralize. Really scrub this stuff off well. Now, if this were a mirror polished knife, I would go back over it just with the buffer. As in this case, I'm just going to take some 2000 and give it each side a little swipe. I don't think it needs it, but it's just GP. But there it is, USS MacDonough, and then my maker's mark on this side. So now we are ready to get everything packaged up. Now, I oil treated the sheath earlier today, and that is drying right now, and I'll buff it, and then we'll package this up and get it off. Well, we got to sharpen it now, and then we'll get it off to Bryan on Monday morning. But there it is. Adds a nice touch when you can mark your knives. Okay, I'm ready for the final phase of production, aside from a good cleaning, and that is sharpening. So I use 3 grades of Arkansas stones, and they're oil stones. I have to refill my oil. I get a lot of oil set out on the stone and rub it around. And the oil, as you grind off steel, which is what you're doing when you're sharpening, the oil will hold that steel up in suspension and keep your stone cutting. So we're shooting for about a 22 degree angle on this knife. And I do this a lot, so I can kind of eyeball this and just do it by feel. I don't use a guide. The idea is just start guiding it down. So we're roughing the edge right now. So I'm going to take a few strokes on each side to get that flat established, and then I can switch to alternate strokes. Good wide bench stones have always served me well. So I have 3 grades of stone here. This is a soft Arkansas. I have a hard Arkansas, and then finally a black ultra hard Arkansas, and then finally we're going to move to a leather strop with a little bit of white rouge rubbed into it to do a final honing of the edge and break off any burr that this rides up. And it does form a little bit of a burr when you're doing this. It'll form it on the opposite edge. So if I do this, I'll get a little burr raised up. So I preform this cutting edge a little bit before heat treatment. So I already have that good foundation set. And this is going to take a while. I'm not going to video the whole process, but I just wanted to kind of give you an outline of what I'm doing. And then we will give this thing a super good cleaning. and get it packaged up. We're shipping on Monday. Okay guys, this is about as done as I can make it. It's sharp now, has a good edge that'll stand us to some good use in the field. And I have given up trying to get this knife unsmudged, because every time I put it in the sheath and pull it out, it's picked up a little bit of beeswax and neatsfoot oil, and it will for a long time. But yeah, the logos are there, and they look good. I'm trying to turn this in the light. You see what I mean by the smudging. And believe it or not, that's a 2000 grit hand finish. It almost looks mirror polished, but it's not. But to go to that mirror polish, I don't want that whole carbide thing to happen and ruin all my good work. I'd just go back to a matte finish anyway if that happened. So we've got her finished, and the sheath is nice and dry now. So that knife's going to go in there and lock right in. It won't come out of the sheath, and I don't think Bryan's going to be spending too much time upside down anyway. But you know, the purpose of the sheath is to protect you from the knife. And it's a good stiff sheath. It's got this little drainage hole in there, so it is ready to be used and enjoyed. So I had a lot of fun making this knife, and it was especially nice since it's an old shipmate that wanted it, and it was a pleasure to make it from him. So yeah, we have a nice taper to the tang, and the handle turned out well, and I'm pleased with it overall, and I hope Bryan will be too. So we're going to get this off into the mail to him, and I'm waiting to see some pictures of him actually using it. So I want to thank you guys for hanging with me through all these many series of videos, and we'll catch you when it's time to start the rust bluing that we did kind of put somewhat on a back burner while we built this knife. But I'm glad to have it done, and I had fun with this build. Thanks a lot.